Good evening. Thank you all so much for being here today. This is a great turnout for the West Side, and we really appreciate everyone coming out and taking some time out of your busy schedules to be with us today. Before we get started, I wanted to just make a little announcement. I know some of y'all have signed up, but si algunas personas necesitan servicios de traducción, por favor consulte con Tía. Tía está aquí y ella puede ayudarnos. Gracias. So, thank you all again for being here at tonight's open house. This is the fourth one that the City of San Antonio has hosted this year to discuss the proposed fiscal year 2017 budget. And your feedback really matters, and we're going to get into all the details about the budget. But before we do that, we wanted to share a quick video with you that gives some highlights of that budget.
San Antonio, you spoke up and we listened. More than 5,000 of you told us what you wanted in this year's budget. First off, this budget has no city property tax increase, and our public safety spending stays at less than 66% of our budget. You told us streets, sidewalks, and drainage were your top priority, and we delivered. This year's budget features $79 million for street improvements and sidewalks. Speak up! You told us neighborhood services were really important, so we made some cool things happen. This year's budget features $900,000 more for animal care services and $900,000 more to care for our city parks. You also told us public safety was important, so this budget features 32 new police officers, 9 new parks officers, and 42 more employees to answer your 911 calls. Fire and EMS will also receive new equipment and gear for 1,200 firefighters. Speak up! There's so much more included in this year's budget, and you can learn all about it at saspeakup.com. Now it's time for you to speak up! Again, fill out the survey today. Speak up!
Okay, so that's a quick little overview of tonight's budget, but you're going to hear a lot more of that from our special guests here today. And I'd like to introduce our first one, Councilwoman Shirley Gonzalez, who will give you some highlights of the budget, and we'll get started. Thank you.
Okay, mic test, mic test. Can y'all hear me okay? Yes. Okay, good. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all for coming this evening to be with us here as we continue to talk about some of our budget priorities. So I live on Zarzamora and Commerce, and so on my way here this evening, I left myself plenty of time to be here by 5:30, and I got stuck by a train. Did anybody get stuck by the train on the way over here? Everybody came from the west side? All the time. And so not in our regular budget, but in the 2017 bond package, we do have an additional $10 million for a bridge over Frio City Road in Zarzamora. Now this has been, yes, thank you. This has been talked about for a long time. $10 million is not going to be sufficient, but we hope that we'll get other sources, money from the MPO region, which is our Metropolitan Planning Organization, to kick in what could potentially be a $45 million project. So I hope that we all, next year when the time comes, we all support that bond package, because that's one of the very important things that we are going to be voting on here shortly. And here, as we talk about our annual budget, you saw that there was an additional $900,000 for animal care services. And a couple of days ago, I wondered if maybe we haven't gone too far in spending for animal care. But as soon as I said it out loud on the dais, as soon as I said it, the next day I went for a run in my neighborhood. There were no less than 10 loose dogs running around. And today, when I went for my run, in fact, I was going to tell the ACS people. Where's my ACS folks? Over here, I see Shannon Sims and another gentleman back here. So today on my run, a big Rottweiler-looking dog came after me and bit my dog. Although she was okay, this continues. And so as we talk about what some of our greatest concerns are and what some of our priorities are, hopefully we'll hear a little bit about what you all think about that additional $900,000 for animal care services. And so in addition to the things that we know that we really need in this neighborhood, of course, as I was doing my run, I saw lots of failed streets. I saw lots of streets without sidewalks. We know that we need an enforcement in our police department, which hopefully is going to come through here. I got to meet some of our trail stewards who are taking care of our newly expanded West Side creeks. So those of you who have not had an opportunity to experience our West Side creeks, I hope you will do so. They're beautiful and they're fabulous, and they connect all the way from Elmendorf Park. They'll eventually connect to Rosedale, but all the way from Elmendorf to the end of Mission Concepcion. It's about 20 kilometers round trip. So I made the trip last Sunday on my bicycle with my children, and it was fabulous. So thank you all for being here and continuing to talk about these issues that we know are so important to you, especially our streets, our sidewalks, our police officers. We have our 42 new employees to our 911 call center, which I know is very important. I am often calling 911. Responding to issues in our neighborhood. And so we know that that was a problem. We heard a lot of complaints of people saying that they were taking too long to respond to the 911 calls. And I had called the other day, it wasn't a true emergency, but I knew I needed to call 911. My hands were kind of full, so I called the 911 and then realized I couldn't put my phone to my ear. So I hung up. And by the time I got back and put my stuff down, they had returned the call, seeing if I was okay and if I needed anything. And that's the kind of responses that we expect from our city. It's the kind of responses we expect with your tax dollars and all these important issues that we're going to discuss today. So thank you all for being here so very much. We really want to hear from you all. And Cheryl Scully, our city manager, is going to make some remarks about how the budget works, and then we're going to give about 10 minutes for question and answer. So I think this has not been done in some of the other sessions, but I appreciate the flexibility of the city staff who, and all of the budget people and all of the people here today to give us an opportunity to ask a few questions. So we will limit that time to just about 10 minutes because we know that there's so many concerns, we couldn't get to them in just amount of time. But that's why we have all the people here to answer your questions very specifically. If you do have a concern about an animal care issue like I experienced this morning. So thank you all for being here today. I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl Scully, our city manager, to talk to you all about how the budget works and how you all can be vocal and participate in this very important city budget. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Well, thank you all for being here tonight. Is that too loud? You guys will adjust. Do I need to stand in a different spot? Is it good? Sounds like it's echoing to me. Maybe it's because we're in a gymnasium. I promise not to try to shoot free throws. Not my expertise, but we're glad you're here. Thank you for coming tonight. And we're surrounded by city staff and all of our city departments. And so after we do this brief presentation, if you have questions about our libraries, our code enforcement, animal care services, police, fire, any of our city departments, they're here at the tables. And so you can go around the room and then talk with them about your questions. So we have a little presentation. It's a big budget, but I'll try to do that and summarize briefly for you. And then, as the Councilwoman said, we'll take a couple of questions from you. So this budget is balanced. We're required by law to maintain a balanced budget. So our budget is balanced today. It's balanced when I present it to the council. And of course, it's balanced when the council adopts the budget. It begins the implementation of the recently council-adopted SA Tomorrow plan, which is the comprehensive growth and development plan for San Antonio. As most of you know, our community will grow by more than 1 million people over the next 25 years, and so we have to plan for that growth. And under Mayor Taylor's direction and that of the council, we worked with the community, and we had dozens of meetings, and hundreds of people participated in the public engagement process to talk about transportation needs for the future, a sustainability plan, how will we grow within our environment, and be sustainable in terms of our job growth and development. We're also, as was mentioned in the video and by the Councilwoman, I'm recommending adding more police officers as part of this budget, and I'll talk in detail about that. I'm hearing feedback, you guys. Do we have a problem, or you're working at it? Okay. And we're preparing for the 2017 bond program. So Theo Malone, which is under construction, and I know it's horrible right now, but when it's done, it will be great. That is from the 2012 program, and so we'll talk a little bit about getting ready for the 2017 capital improvements, and this budget does not include a property tax rate increase. So the city has not increased the property tax rate, the city property tax rate, for 24 years, and in fact, over the past 10 years, we have recommended, as staff and council has approved, lowering the city property tax rate 4 times. And we're just 1/4 of that total property tax bill, as you know. Okay, on the next slide, community priorities. So we began the process to ask the community, what do you want to see within the budget? And these are the priorities that we've received feedback on. And so we change up our meeting process. You know, before 10 years ago, we didn't take the budget out on the road. And when I was appointed city manager in 2005, I recommended to the council we go out into the council districts and host meetings with the community to talk about the budget, to answer questions, to have staff attend. And you see our police chief who just stepped out in the hallways here tonight. We have several department directors and assistant directors here to answer your questions, because we want you to learn about the budgeting process. And so we change it up every couple of years because everyone gets to know the process, and sometimes groups then monopolize the various meetings. And so we try to change it a little bit each year so that everybody has a chance to participate. And this year, we did some survey work at the beginning of the budget process, and this year have had 3 times as many residents participate and give us input into the overall priorities. And more now with the meetings we've been conducting, almost 6,000 people have given us input. And this is how the priorities have come out. Street maintenance, no surprise. You know that we maintain more than 4,000 miles of streets. And so we all have our favorite list of those things and streets that need the greatest repair. And I know that in this district, we have a number of neighborhoods that have never even had sidewalks. So we have still a lot more construction to do. And in this proposed bond program for 2017, the mayor and council has asked that we dedicate a substantial amount of money to not only streets, which we do in each bond program, but also for a sidewalk program throughout the community. So this is the order of what we've heard from the community so far as to priorities. Of course, more personnel and supporting economic development and our parks and recreation. So our total city budget is $2.5 billion. That's actually slightly less than the current 2016 budget, 0.2%. And that is because our capital construction is slightly less this year because we're finishing up the 2012 bond program. So we peaked last year with construction and spending for the 2012 bond program, and now we're finishing that up, and so the capital budget is slightly less. These are the 3 categories of our total city budget. So the general fund, representing the biggest portion, 45%, is what you commonly think about in terms of the city budget. Police, fire, streets, parks and recreation, libraries, social services, health department, animal care, code enforcement. Those kinds of activities. In the restricted funds, those are departments where the fees for service cover the cost of the department. And we're legally unable to take funds from those departments and use them for police, fire, streets, libraries, those kinds of activities. An example of a restricted or enterprise fund would be garbage collection. So as single-family residential homeowners or renters here in the community, we have garbage collection, and you pay a monthly fee, and that supports the cost of that service. That garbage collection is not supported by property taxes or sales taxes. Likewise, the airport, that's considered a restricted enterprise fund. The fees that the airlines pay, that we pay as users, the restaurants, the car rental, those activities on the airport pay for the cost of the airport. And by law, by federal law, we cannot use those funds to support other city services. And then the third category representing our capital budget, not just our bond program, but also the capital improvements in those enterprise departments. Like at the airport, where the consolidated car rental facility at $170 million is under construction and will be completed in November of 2017. So within the general fund, that largest portion of the budget, here's how we spend the money in the center of the circle. 2/3 of the budget is spent on the police and fire departments. And council policy has directed staff to keep that spending at less than 66%. And the proposed budget for 2017 is at 65.9%. So we're just under that 66% policy directive. The second largest category there is street maintenance. You can see here on the chart. Parks and recreation, the next largest piece of the budget. And all the rest reflect all those other activities of the city. The libraries, human services, code enforcement, animal care, health, historic preservation, planning, 311 operations, the municipal detention center and general administration of the city, accounting, human resources, purchasing, those activities. So that's in that other small portion of the budget. Hi, Mr. Brown. So on the, wait, go back to that just for a second. On the outside, you see the sources of funds or our revenue. So the largest piece being CPS revenue, 30% of our general fund revenue. So CPS Energy, because the city of San Antonio, we the residents of the community own CPS Energy. And in lieu of paying taxes, because if they were a private energy company, they'd pay taxes to the city, and there would be a shareholder return. The people who own the company or own stock in the company would have a return on investment. Because we as a community are the owners of the system, we're entitled to a return on investment, and they pay 14% of their gross revenue to the city. So that's 30% of our revenue. The next largest category being property tax, that's 28%, sales tax at 24%, and then other resources where we charge fees for renting pavilions at a park or some of our library fines or EMS, our emergency medical services, transport fees. That would be in that other category. So on the outer edge of the circle, sources of funds, inside the circle, how we spend the dollars. And every dollar is accounted for. Okay, so the 2017 budget, as I said, supports SA Tomorrow, our comprehensive growth and development plan, and the mayor and council have asked us to focus in on neighborhood improvements. That is, now the next step in implementing that plan will be to work with our neighborhoods to ensure that we preserve their character and make improvements so that we have safe and decent housing, that we do a better job with infrastructure, that is streets and sidewalks and neighborhood parks. In the area of fire service, because we have not completed negotiations, in fact, we haven't even started negotiations with the fire department. The fire union has refused to negotiate. Their contract expired 2 years ago. So we've assumed evergreen, which means their old contract is continuing. It has a clause within it that says the terms and conditions of the old contract continue for 10 years. So 2 years have transpired. We're in evergreen. We've assumed that old contract. But we are hopeful, and we still invite them to come and negotiate so that we can resolve those contract issues. It also fully funds the 51 firefighters we added in this year's budget to improve service throughout the community, adds 2 more classes to fill vacancies as they come up during the course of the year, and we're retrofitting our fire stations for an exhaust removal system. So when fire engines and ladders come back from service or they're going out for service, all that exhaust from those pieces of equipment gets into the sleeping areas. So we're installing an exhaust removal system so that it doesn't contaminate the air that they breathe. Where we've built and replaced stations, we've put in new exhaust systems. So this allows us to retrofit the old ones where that hasn't been done. And then a second set of bunker gear, which may not be that exciting to you, but the equipment that the firefighters wear when they fight the fires, the chief has recommended that we acquire a second set so that while one set's being cleaned, then they have another set to use. Okay, in the police department, it does assume the mediated settlement of the collective bargaining agreement. As you know, we've been negotiating for the past 2 years, more than 2 years, and we reached a mediated settlement in June, and that's going to City Council for their consideration on Thursday of this week. So this budget assumes that mediated settlement. I'm recommending 32 additional police officers. 25 of those are for community-based policing and in the community in our neighborhoods, and 7 of those are to service areas that we are annexing to the city of San Antonio. 9 additional parks police to service the growing park system. So as our bond program has developed more parkland in our linear creeks, we are adding park police to be able to ensure that our community is safe as they use our park facilities. 42 additional civilians. These are call takers in our 911 system. We've had some challenges with the growing number of calls for service that are approaching 1.5 million 911 calls annually. And so as we have more calls for service, we have to add more call takers so that people are not put on hold or that we don't have dropped calls when they call in need of an emergency situation. And then the continuation of our body camera implementation. So we have approximately 2,400 police officer positions. We are equipping each of our patrol officers with body cameras. We've implemented the system with about over 700 police officers so far, and this continues the implementation of the body camera program. Lastly, a pilot program on gang violence intervention, looking at creative ways, looking at other cities, how they're dealing with gang violence. No one has the market on the solution, but we're constantly looking at ways and different strategies on how we intervene with gang violence and try to reduce the violence in our neighborhoods. Street maintenance, as I said, was the next biggest category recommendation in the budget, and last year we were able to increase our street funding, and again this year $64 million for street maintenance. You can see in previous years it was a lower amount, and because it has in recent years been the top priority for improvements, we've increased the funding level for street maintenance. Our Transportation and Capital Improvements Department, where are we tonight? Over in the corner, oh my gosh. Our city engineer's here tonight too, Mike Frisbee. So all your street questions, right over there. And you can see we've increased the funding, and the competition obviously is immense. The City Council considers our 5-year infrastructure program on an annual basis. So what we try to do is plan out for the next 5 years those streets where we will be doing preventative maintenance as well as reconstruction, like we're seeing on Theo Malone, right, Mike? So that happens to be a bond project, but where streets get to the place where they're just so in disrepair, we have to totally reconstruct the street, and those are the projects we usually put into and recommend in the bond program. This is for annual maintenance, trying to do more preventative maintenance so we can extend the life of our streets that are in pretty good condition. And Mike Frisbee, if you want to see where your neighborhood streets fall on our rating scale, we have an A through F rating for every mile of our 4,000 miles of streets in the community so that we know its condition, and that helps guide us as to which projects we recommend to the mayor and council each year for consideration. And as you can imagine, there's never enough money for all of the streets, but we're making progress in trying to get our streets into a better place. And then our sidewalk funding. You can see that in the past the dollar amounts have been rather low, and last year and this year we were able to recommend $15 million toward sidewalk improvements in the community. And we try to focus in the neighborhoods leading to schools so that children have a safe place to walk on their way to school, elementary school, middle school, and then also to bus routes so that transit-dependent populations have a chance to use our public transit system. Street maintenance, this is not all of the street projects in District 5, but we wanted to list just a few of them so you can see what's included in the proposed budget for 2017. Here are some of the sidewalks that are recommended in District 5 as well. This is not the total list, not exhaustive, but gives you an idea as to what is included. Streetlights, you know that at the urging of Councilwoman Gonzalez, we've been able to add more streetlights in some of the neighborhoods, and I know those of you who have more streetlights, I see some thumbs up here, Shirley, so they're happy with your urging the funding for our neighborhoods, especially our center city neighborhoods that are older, need more lights, and so we're able to do that. And we have included another $1 million for additional neighborhood street lighting in this budget, and I have a feeling the council members are going to say we need more than that. In the budget, it's not enough, and we'll have that conversation as to how we might move some money around from lesser priority projects to increase street lighting. And then 2 additional items, both of which have been championed by Councilwoman Gonzalez, the Vision Zero project, and she just did a news conference about that last week with our city engineer, Mike Frisbee, and the mayor to talk about trying to reach 0 fatalities of pedestrians in our neighborhoods. So creating safer crosswalks, better lighting, improving the street markings so that people can safely cross the road with, even in some cases, something in a median where it's a safe harbor to get halfway across the street, especially for those bigger, busier streets. And then also safety around the schools, more flashers, better crossings so that children around schools can safely walk to school. Delegate agency funding. The council begins the process, and most of you know you may be with agencies that or represent one of the agencies are in a competitive process every 2 years, and this year was that process. We fund more than 70 delegate agencies that provide community services, more than $21 million of funding for agencies to pay for services. And so those, this year when the council began the process, they said, let's move some of the money into workforce development. And so when that happened, an unintended consequence was that some money then had to come out of one of the other categories, and it was the crisis intervention category. It was not intended to cut domestic violence programs, but that was an unintended consequence. However, with savings in some of the other programs for the past 2 years, we've been able to keep funding level. That is, no cuts for the domestic violence agencies that are funded by the city, so it's level funding for next year. Parks and Recreation, we're adding 7 positions, and that's to maintain parks, expanding our park system as part of the bond program, and of course at Normoyle and Roosevelt Parks, additional staff for maintenance and security. In our capital budget, you can see this is how the $585 million gets broken down. This is general fund and our restricted enterprise funds, streets being the largest portion. 32% of the capital budget going for street improvements, airport being next, and that's primarily driven by our big car rental facility project, again, funded by aviation revenues, not from the general fund. And then neighborhood improvements, parks and recreation, sidewalk improvements, drainage, and some for information technology to keep that technology backbone for the city in good shape so that we can communicate with the public. And we're introducing more different types of technology throughout the city so that we can best serve all of you. And a couple of examples on that would include adding some Wi-Fi on a pilot basis to some of our parks, our bigger parks. Also to use community kiosks, that is so that residents can access information about programming in parks or libraries, or perhaps even know a little bit more about local businesses in the area. If someone wants to grab a bite to eat or have a cup of coffee, where can I go to a local restaurant that's nearby a park facility? So using technology to try to improve our services to the public. We're even doing some permitting now online. Rod Sanchez, our Director of Development Services, is working on a new user-friendly computerized system for permitting so that developers or even those who are repairing their home don't necessarily have to come down to the one-stop center, but rather can apply for their permit online. And so that will be moving out into the community as well. The status of our bond project, 140 projects, and these are the projects the voters approved in 2012. We've made a commitment that we substantially complete our projects within the 5-year time frame. 92% of those completed, 8% are in design, and we expect them to be under construction before May of 17. So with 900 projects in total, that is the annual budget as well as the bond program, Mike Frisbee and his team are very busy because we don't actually do the capital construction in our bond program, but rather through a competitive bid process, the private sector bids on that work, and of course the low bid is able to do the work. But I will tell you, and we always want your feedback on capital projects, how well a contractor may be doing. If someone doesn't do a good job for the city or does inferior quality work, then we don't allow them to continue to do work for the city. So we have an evaluation process for even the private sector contractors that do work for the city. These are some of the 2012 bond projects that either have been completed or are under construction. Theo Malone is expected to be completed next May of 17. I see portions of it are already done. And of course, the senior center was completed a year ago. You can see here on the list some of them, not all of the projects, but just wanted to remind you those were projects out of the 2012 bond program. And then next steps for the budget. Now something, and I know that there are some people here tonight to talk about wages for city employees. This budget does include a minimum level of $13 per hour for any entry-level position to the city. I recommended that to City Council last year. The council approved that. They've also asked for some alternatives on what would it take to even increase that minimum amount. If not 13, then how do we get to 14 or 15 over time? And we have prepared some alternatives with the financial impact on the budget if we were to do that, which we will be presenting to the council. Maria, what date do we have for employee compensation next week? September 7th? So September 7th at 2 p.m., that is when we are slated to talk about that topic, and the council will consider some of the alternatives they've asked us to take a look at. So that's included in the budget. We have 5 city council work sessions. We had one last week. We have 2 this week. Tomorrow we begin at noon until 2:30 or 3, and another one on Wednesday, and then 2 more the following week after Labor Day weekend. And then we also have 5 community open houses. 3 we did last week. This is our 4th, and then we have 1 more this week on Thursday. And then there are also public hearings at the City Council chambers, so down at Municipal Plaza, and those are in the evening, public hearings on the budget. You're welcome to attend any and all. And then budget adoption is expected on September 15th. By charter, by city charter, we're required to adopt the budget no later than September 27th. And so the scheduled adoption is on September 15th. Our fiscal year begins on October 1, and as I said, it must be balanced. It is today, it will be when the council completes its deliberation on the budget. Of course, we can't fund everything, but these sessions are to provide you information about the budget and to answer questions you may have, and we can do that through the myriad of departments who are here tonight. Well, we might have you outnumbered, but I'm not sure. Nonetheless, we have enough staff here tonight that can answer your questions about the budget. And I know some of you have individual questions where you're interested in perhaps code enforcement and not everything else. So we welcome you to talk with any of the staff who are attending tonight. Thank you again. You've been a very patient and quiet audience, and I'll turn it over to the councilwoman who will help. And if anyone came in late and needs Spanish translation services. We have a translator here tonight who I'm sure is doing an excellent job. And we have earphones, so if you would like that, please just raise your hand and we will make that available to you. Thank you so much. Councilwoman?
Okay, test. Okay, y'all can hear me good. So I want to take a minute to acknowledge my staff, and I'm going to ask them to stand here, maybe somewhere here in the middle. So we have Sean and Vinny right here, and thank you all. And Jennifer, who does policy. Xavier does constituent services. Richard does constituent services. Thank you. Dora does constituent services and a lot of other things. And then, of course, Maribel's my executive secretary at City Hall. So as you all go about asking questions to the other departments, I want to make sure that my staff is available here, too, if you have any questions. And, of course, I'll be here till the end of the evening. And we'll open it up for about 10 minutes of question and answer. And we have a microphone here in case you all want to take the microphone. So we can start that portion.
Yeah, we're live streaming at home, so we'll just come to you with the microphone and we'll start right over here.
Are you holding? Okay, good evening. My name is Robert Cruz, the leader with Cops at Metro, and I want to thank the councilwoman for allowing me to speak up. For over 40 years, Cops at Metro have been fighting to create economic opportunities for all our neighbors. For the past 2 years, we have worked hard for our public sector employers to pay their workers a living wage. We are proud of that work, but we have a lot more work to do. We do not want our tax dollars used to keep people in poverty. 2 weeks ago at the City Council A session, we reminded council members of our commitment to raise wages for the lowest paid workers to $14 an hour this year and $15 next year. We reminded them of their commitment to set a wage floor of $9.50 for outsourced workers. We asked council members to make Project Quest a long-term workforce training program, a line item in the city budget at $2.2 million a year. We were delighted to hear Council members Lopez and Saldaña ask the managers to raise wages to $14 an hour this fiscal year. And we hear Council members Gonzalez, Villagran, Warwick, Trevino, Nuremberg, and Medina ask for a path to $15 an hour. We are encouraged by their support to make this increase real, and it must be included in the city budget. The budget presentation tonight, we heard the living wages of $13 and only a recommendation of 1%. We stand with the city council members in their ambition to make the city of San Antonio an employer of choice, which includes adequate family leave, benefits, but also a living wage of $14 an hour. We also ask council members to move the dialogue forward on setting a wage floor for outsourced workers. We encourage council members to stand firm on the commitments they made to our community to build a path towards economic opportunities for all our neighbors, starting with living wages for the lowest paid workers, direct and outsourced, and investments in effective job training. Thank you.
Thank you. We do want to remind everyone that we want to take questions tonight, so if anyone does have a question to ask, we're happy to answer those for you. Just hold on for us to bring the microphone over to you. Does anyone else have any questions? We'll come right over here, and then we'll come back over.
Okay, I have two. Is that okay?
I'll hold them.
Oh, okay. So, how would transforming the San Antonio Convention and Visitors Bureau into an independent nonprofit corporation afford a greater competitive advantage for the city as a destination? And what specifically would that new nonprofit corporation be doing? What's its agenda?
At the direction of the mayor and council, we did take a look and study this issue with the hospitality industry. And there was a task force that included representatives from the community as well as from the hotel industry and our director of the Convention and Visitors Bureau. In San Antonio, the CVB, Convention and Visitors Bureau, is the only place where it is a city department. In all other major cities across the country, it's a nonprofit, independent organization that is allowed to bring in private sector dollars to leverage the hotel occupancy taxes that support the CVB to do even more marketing of the community. San Antonio has been one of the top destinations for travelers within the state of Texas, and of course now with our World Heritage designation, we'll have even more visitors coming to the community. So it's a big challenge, a big responsibility, but a great opportunity to also grow our community and have more people locally learn more about it, but also to have visitors from throughout the world come to San Antonio. So having the CVB be separate from the city, the council has asked that there still be oversight by the council. That is, the council will still approve their annual budget. The council and, of course, we as a city organization collect those taxes, but they're paid for by people who stay in the hotels. So that department is supported entirely today by the hotel tax. And as you know, we have thousands and thousands of hotel rooms. In fact, we're very fortunate because we have more than 14,000 hotel rooms just in the downtown area, which is one of the reasons we're able to host so many conferences and conventions. So the purpose of it spinning out is to help it be more nimble, to do more marketing by leveraging private sector dollars with the hotel occupancy taxes. Thank you for that question. It is, the council has approved going forward with that transition plan. 2017 will be a year of transition because we've offered the employees the opportunity to go with the new organization or to stay within the city organization. And some of them, especially those that are near retirement, want to stay inside the city organization. We're working with those employees to help make that happen for them.
Hi, thank you. I just have a question concerning what you went over about the streets. There's a lot of maintenance that's going to happen and so forth. In this specific area, especially, you know, it's very old. I didn't hear, I came in late unfortunately, I didn't hear any mention at all about service roads, what other people in other parts of the districts call alleyways. We don't have any here. We have what they call service roads. The city of San Antonio says that we're responsible to maintain them, cut the grass, maintain it. However, the city doesn't actually have any responsibility for maintenance of these alleyways, service roads. The utilities come in sometimes right after a rain, like they just did in my immediate area, gouged holes, ruts, deep enough for mosquitoes to have a field day. What I would like to know is, in all these wonderful plannings, which I think is very efficient, y'all have done a wonderful job. However, has anybody ever even addressed the issue of these service roads that the city says they're not responsible for, that the individual services that use it, the utilities, are responsible for fixing them? I spent more than 2.5 months last year trying to get someone to fix the service road. So my question is, road construction, road maintenance and all that, does that include service roads? Because that's where it really breaks down for us.
So let me start and answer. So in some areas it depends. Where we pick up the garbage in the service alleys, we have done some paving work so that the trucks can get down those alleys. If you have front curbside garbage collection, then we don't. However, in that case, and this is our city engineer, so I want to get the name of your street, because we need to work, and we coordinate with CPS Energy and San Antonio Water System, since the city owns both of those entities. They have separate staff and separate boards, but we we can facilitate getting that corrected behind your house where they leave big tire tracks and create a problem for you. So we'll get the name of that street. But we do allocate some monies within our budget to do some work within the alleys, not as much as we do for the streets, but we do some work on a limited basis. Did I skip some stuff, Mike, or you want to add to that?
I think that's very accurate. So what we can do is help to facilitate that. Even though maybe we don't own that alley, we can work with the utility companies and get out there and take a look with you, and then work on regrading or whatever needs to take place. So we can help facilitate that, and after the session, I can meet with you over in the corner here, and we can get the right address and name and contact information.
So are you asking the city to maintain it, or just to make sure that SAWS and CPS takes care of it and doesn't create bigger problems?
I would prefer for the city to take responsibility for the particular public, well, it's not even public road, that only the utility people use. What I'm saying is that I have a neighbor right now who is a veteran. He's elderly. He's hard of hearing. His backyard has flooded 8 times, he told me, because of the water, because of the way the service road is not graded correctly. The water goes into our backyards.
Yeah.
I've only been flooded once in the last 3 years. Of course, we were in a drought for a while. But what I'm saying is that
No, I hear what you're saying. Okay, we're going to work with you on your specific location so that we can help. Okay, Laura? Of course.
Sure.
I'm not in this district. In fact, I was trying to find where my district was going to meet, and I'm in District 7. There's nowhere close. This is the closest.
Yeah, actually, there is a meeting next week,
Yeah,
on Thursday.
Past 410 on the newer, by Helotes.
Yeah, but there's a District 7 meeting on Thursday evening.
And how?
Oh, yes, at the Doris Griffin Senior Center.
And how were my whole block was only informed of this one. We don't get any information from our councilman. And what she was just saying is very, very important, because I'm in District 7, my mother's in District 1, she's 88. She has a replacement knee and hip, and she just fell in April, now has a hairline fracture to the pelvis, all on the same side. And we're running into the same problem. For the past 6, 7 years, I've been asking that same question, because I'm also a senior now. And the alleys, the infrastructure is old. In fact, I have a real big concern about a ticking bomb, because my alley has gone down this way, because it's like my mother's too. The back neighbors are higher than our lot. So the water comes in this way, then comes in this way. And over time, it is down to the base where the gas lines are. And we have to go in there with our weed whacker. And I also have been asking, who owns this? I'm told the utilities. And then I'm told, but then we're fined by the city over $1,000 if we're reported that we don't keep it up. And, I have to jump over a fence to do that. And my mother has to, we shouldn't be having to be responsible for that. I mean, because it's not called a service.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll take that location work with you as well. But we have actually, in District 7, there have been a lot of alleys paved over the last 10 years. Yeah. But we'll get that location and work with you. But you've brought up a really good point about impervious cover. You hear us talk about that often. And so when there's good news and bad news with paving. So when you pave, it makes it easy for the vehicles to use, but then it also creates a runway for the water. So we have to be careful as we pave and grade these areas. And of course, we have the ground moves over time as well, but we'll work with you on your specific location.
And we have time for one more question, and we had someone in line over here, but just wanted to remind everyone that city staff will be available to answer any questions.
Okay.
And make those deep,
Okay.
cuts into the ground.
All right, so her comment was about Time Warner Cable. Sir?
My question is, do you have a time frame when the beginning of the build of the bridge over Fuel City Road by the railroad tracks?
The bridge, okay, Mike Frisbee.
So as the councilwoman said, that's a very important project. We have some funding now that we're studying the best way to get up and over or underneath. How do we separate from traffic from the railroad tracks? We do expect in the 2017 bond there's going to be significant dollars associated with it. And then we need additional funding. It's going to be a big project, but we also want to show the community different concepts because, think about the visibility of an overpass. We need to work with the community on that. So it's going to take a while to get the design done and get to construction because it's such a big project. It'll take a couple years to get there, for sure.
We both retired from Kelly Air Force Base in '99, and now as a grandparent of kids at Lowell Middle School, we're still having troubles. And it's 2017, and I worked at Kelly Air Force Base back in the '90s and '80s, and that project was on the table for that long.
So this councilwoman has been advocating for it. And as Mike said, we expect that it would be included in the proposed 2017 bond program. So it would be initiated for construction during the next five years.
Excuse me, I'm a long-term resident. I grew up in this neighborhood. Back when they started talking about it was only $4 million. Nobody did anything. They dragged their feet like they always do. And now they're talking $10 million when it's going to cost 40. I mean, look at the cost. If you would have done something about it back then,
No.
you wouldn't be spending $4 million.
So let me share with you a couple of things. So in the past decade, and when I was hired, the council asked me to develop the biggest bond program that I thought we could handle financially. So just to give you a point of context, prior to 10 years ago, the city was undertaking bond programs that were about 100 to maybe the biggest one was $140 million, and that's a lot of money. But for a city as big as San Antonio, it's just a fraction of what the needs are. I can't explain why the community didn't do bigger bond programs before 10 years ago. In '07, the voters approved a $550 million bond program. And in 2012, the voters approved $600 million. And we're proposing for next May of 17, $850 million. And 70 to 80% of our bond programs go into streets and drainage and bridges. So we're focused on basic infrastructure. You're right, if those things had been done before, they would have cost less. But why the city didn't do them, I cannot explain that. But we're playing catch up right now. We're making some progress. But as I said, with 4,000 miles of streets, and we have literally hundreds of bridges, there's still a lot of work to do. So I recognize what you're saying, and we're working toward that. And if you haven't volunteered for one of the bond programs, the councilwoman has the opportunity to put 3 representatives from this district on all 5 bond committees. So 15 people from the district to serve on the citizen bond committees. And they will start meeting in early October, mid-October, November, early December. And the staff will make recommendations on projects. The committees will deliberate, and then they will make a recommendation to the council in January, because the council must set the election for May of 2017 by the 1st of February. So if you'd like to be involved or offer input, all of those meetings are also open to the public, and we're going to live stream the meetings as well, so you don't have to attend every one of the meetings, but we're welcoming input into the bond program too. Okay? But you all have been great. We will stay after this discussion and answer questions you have. And as I said, we have departments all the way around the room. If you have a specific question about libraries or animal care services, code enforcement, we have lots of people here tonight. So thank you for your patience and your questions this evening. Councilwoman?
Test? Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you all for being here. We're going to still be here to answer questions. I myself have a list going of concerns. In fact, I have a request for Morales sidewalk over in the near west side. So please, I'll be here with my staff. If you have smaller requests that we know we need regarding sidewalks, lighting, along those lines, please come see us, and we're all here for you. We'll be here for how long? Till what time? Till 7:30. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you all very much for attending.